going on, everybody? I wanted to do a quick tutorial today on how to create an analog gauge using Qt and Python, using images instead of drawing scripts and a lot of the other tutorials out there that show how to do this in a different way. That's not quite as nice as far as the images that get used and drawn on screen. But yeah, I mean, I did a lot of searching around trying to figure out how to do this, and there's not a lot of info out there. So before we get started, I'll show you. This is kind of what I'm creating here in the tutorial is a gauge that's here, just automated the sweeping of the needle. Yeah, I actually need to compile it to a smaller display, so I figured I'd go ahead and use the opportunity to do a tutorial and kill two birds with one stone here. So let's get started. We're going to start out with, well, I'll show you in creating the images. This isn't a Photoshop tutorial, but some tips here. I've scaled down the images here, but creating the images for the gauge, all you really need is two images, starting out with a face, gauge face, and again, not really showing how to draw that, but setting a translucent background, and then creating the face on one layer, and then creating the needle on another layer, and then saving turning the needle off. We can go into File and Save As, saving the each individual image as PNG files. So you see I already have these kind of saved right now, but when you turn the needle off and save the face, it'll save without the needle on there, and then turn the needle on, turn the face off, and hide the face, and then you can save the needle. I did this in one document, one Photoshop document, because it's easy to get the needle and the gauge lined up and in place. And then, of course, the needle and the gauge face actually have to be the same dimensions here. So for the purposes of my compiling to a smaller screen, we can see if you go into image size, it's 400 by 400. So both the needle and the face are 400 by 400. So the next step is to create a user interface in Qt. So we'll go ahead and get started there with the Qt Creator. And this step isn't extremely necessary if you know how to write the code in Python using the Qt5 libraries. This step for me just speeds up the process a little bit. And to be honest, I figured I was going to end up doing a lot more of the code in Qt than in Python, but that didn't end up being the case. And the reason why is Qt can't really handle images as well as some of the other libraries in Python. So I kind of learned that along the way. But we can at least do the UI setup, which is helpful in the Qt software. So what we're going to do is just create a new file. We're not going to create a whole new project, but a new file using Qt and Qt Designer Form. So we're going to choose that. We're going to use main window and hit next, and then browse to our file location. And this is the project folder that I have set up for this project. So we're going to select this folder, hit next, and finish. And you can see we have a blank user interface file. So this is really simple. First, what we want to do is come up to the main window, and I am going to remove the menu bar and the status bar, and that just makes a cleaner gauge at the end process. And then come over to the geometry tab, and we want to scale that to 400 by 400, which is what our image is set up. From there, we have a window that is 400 pixels by 400 pixels, and the next thing we want to do is drag and drop a label. So likewise, we're going to scale that label. We'll give it a name first. So we'll label, this label will be, let's call it label, let's just say tack face. All right, and then we're going to scale this label to fill the whole screen or the whole window. So we're going to set the top left corner at 0, 0, and then 400 pixels by 400 pixels. And that'll work. And finally, for the label, we want to delete any text in the label. And then we will set a pixel map as the background image. So we're going to set up the image, and this is the tack face. So we're going to choose File and just select the PNG image that we have created for the gauge background. And that's going to go in and fit perfectly right in the center, edge to edge. And we are actually done with that widget. So the next one we're going to do is drag and drop another widget, another label widget right on top. We're going to label this one Tack Needle. Again, we're going to set the top left corner and 400 by 400. And this gets us a preliminary image of the needle as well as the object or the widget created so that when we go into Python, everything is right there. So we're going to eliminate the text, and then the pix map we're going to set to the needle. And since we created them the same size in Photoshop, they fit perfectly on top of each other. And that is it. That's all we're going to be doing in the UI. Like I said, if you are proficient enough in Qt, the PyQt or PyQt libraries, this is easy enough to set up the code there as well. So we're going to save this mainwindow.ui. So if we look at our project file folder now, we have mainwindow.ui. Okay, so we have a UI file, which is an XML type file. What we need to do is convert that to a Python file. So we'll do that. And then we're just going to navigate to the project folder. Now that we're in there, we're going to use I think it's IUC5. We're going to call that function, and this assumes that you already have Python set up on your machine, and everything's good to go there. So we're going to use this command, set the input file as mainwindow.ui, and the output file is going to be, I like to capitalize the Python one, mainwindow.py. So that's going to give us, take this Qt file, Qt user interface file, and convert it to a Python file. And that is not correct. Hang on 1 second. UIC. A little bit of dyslexia there. There we go. So now if we look back in here, project folder, we have main window Python file. So we are done with the Qt portion of the user interface setup. So next up is creating a Python project. So we're going to create a new project here, and we are going to use this folder again, just to keep everything global site packages and hit create. So in here, we can see that we have main window.py, and actually, I did not select something right. Let's eliminate this, start over. Oops, let's go back, create new project. Wonder why it didn't create the main.py script. Let's go in here, here. Tell you what, we will empty this out. Okay. And it may not like that. Let's do this. Let's create a new folder altogether. Call it Gauge 1. Same selections as before, and we'll hit create in a new window. And that should give us what we're looking for. So now we have the main.py file. And I am just going to copy everything out of here and go to here and paste everything in. And we'll just be working in this folder from now on. All right, so now we have main.py show up, and this is the code that was generated from the Python script we ran on the Qt UI interface object. So we actually don't need to do anything in here, but we can see that we have our widgets created. We have the label tack face, label tack needle, and they have the pixmap set. This command self.label tack needle set pixmap sets the image tack needle.png to the background of that widget. So let's come back to main.py here, and we can delete everything in here. And since I already have all of the code written, and I'm not going to go through all of that right now, I can just run through briefly and explain while I copy and paste everything over. But we're going to use a couple different import statements. We need the PyQt5 library with Qt widgets and Qt GUI. And we also need, for my example, the Qt core, and I'll explain why in a little bit. The other library that we need to import is Pillow. And the reason why is Pillow is actually really good at working with images. So that was where Qt had, gave me some trouble. And so I used the Pillow library to generate the image transformations that I need to get the rotation on the needle and the Qt widgets. So we're going to start, and I'll copy and paste everything from the imports over here to our new project. There we go. And then, so the other thing is we have this main window.py, and if we look at that again, we have a UI main window class here. So we're going to just import that UI main window directly into our new script, main.py. So the next thing we need to do is create our class for the main window. So anytime you would use PyQt5 or PyQt5 or Qt, you're going to have to do this. So, assuming you have some experience with Qt, this will be our init sequence and for our class here. So we're going to copy and paste that over. All right. Inside the init, I have a couple different things that I'm doing. So as you saw when I run this script, we have when I run the program, we have the needle sweeping from 0 to 9, and that's happens to be 270 degrees. And because I don't have a slider or any other input object to give me that value, I set up a timer. And so that's why we're importing the Qt core here, is for the timer tools. So we're going to copy over those timers, and you can use, and I intend to use for this project, a different source of input later, but just for the tutorial to get something working, we're just going to use the timer. And how that works is we set the timer object here, and then we set the interval at 1 millisecond, and then whenever the timeout happens, we're going to call this function update gauge, and then we're going to start the timer. So let's copy that over to the new project. Timer variables, and then a couple different variables that I'm going to be using in the project as well. We'll copy these over. And so I have a rotation angle, rotation stop angle, and then a step value. And then we are actually using the pillow image open to open the tack needle and store it in a variable called needle. And here, now we need to create the update gauge function. And this is the way that I did it. There's other ways. Once the timer times out, if the rotation stop was at 0, which we're going to initialize it at 0, and the rotation itself is less than 270 degrees, we're going to basically just increment up by step value of 1. And then if we are at 270, we're going to set the stop at 270, and then we're going to start decrementing. So then we come down in the next cycle through, after this is set to 270, we're going to go down to this else statement and say as long as we're greater than 0 and the stop is 270, we're going to just keep decrementing until we get back to 0, and then we'll set 0 and then start sweeping up, and that creates the 0 to 270 back and forth motion over and over again. So the next thing we need to do is use that rotation value that we're getting out of this function and create a needle rotation from that angle. So these two lines of code, they don't seem like a lot, but this was the hardest thing to get to work, in trying a million different methods and looking at stuff online. There wasn't anything that was quite doing it like this. So I figured, hey, why not share with the community here. So what we're doing is we're using this rotation value, and we're rotating our image needle variable that we created up here, and we are rotating it by that value, and we're actually make it negative because a positive value wants to sweep clockwise or counterclockwise, and we're actually sweeping counterclockwise, so the negative value is needed there. Then we're storing that image into a Qt image. And the reason why is we eventually have to get back out to a PixMap and set the label background as a PixMap. So what we're doing is, first you have to set it as a Qt image, and then you can use QPixMap from image and pass it that Qt image. And so we take our needle image, PNG image, we're going to rotate it, we're going to store it as a Qt image, convert it to a PixMap, and then this line here is going to set that PixMap as the new image output file rotated needle. So I'll copy all of that and paste it over here, and I'm going to have to change some variables around, or variable names around. Okay, so we have that, and that is basically all of the code. Very simple. We got to close out the app here. Copy this over. All right. Now we have to rename some stuff because we named it differently in this project with the smaller gauge. So I need to take tackneedle.png and we're going to name it tack_needle.png. There it is, so it found it. And what error are we getting here? Oh, nothing. Okay. UI main window, let's see if that runs. Oh. Let's see here. Why is that definition not working? Oh, I'm spaced out. Let us index this back. One thing I don't like about Python is that everything has to be completely indexed correctly. There we go. Oop. Import Qt. Where are we going wrong now? Ah, yes, okay. I think, figured it out. I labeled the labels differently. So, tack needle instead of just needle. There we go. There we go. So that got us the gauge there, and we can change the speed by, because that's ridiculously fast, we can either set the interval different or we can set the step different. So let's change, we'll set interval to 10 milliseconds. Update. There we go, much smoother. And there you have it. So that is the gauge, how to create an analog gauge, and you can use whatever inputs you like instead of a clock. But that is pretty much all I have. So thanks for watching.